Again, thank you everyone for attending. I'm Shelby Watts, and I'll be moderating our great conversation today. Welcome to today's webinar powered by hireEZ. A couple of things that we really love doing here at hireEZ is spotlighting our amazing partners and bringing in executive TA leaders to share their insights with the community. So today we're here to talk about one of the most important and rapidly evolving topics in recruiting right now, which is the shift from traditional automation to truly agentic AI and how that's reshaping the recruiter's role today. So a couple of housekeeping tips before we get started. We'll have a few minutes at the end for questions. So don't forget to add yours in the chat as we have the discussion so that we can address them at the end. And I'm joined by two great speakers today. We have Alicia O'Brien. She is the Senior Vice President of Innovation and Customer Success at Wilson. And then we have Stephen Jiang, who is CEO and co-founder at hireEZ. So why don't we just go ahead and dive in? Stephen, if you want to get started by distinguishing between traditional automation and agentic AI.
Sure, and this is a big question, but also I think the first question people will have in their mind when we talk about the AI. AI is not a new thing. It's just about there are generations of technologies in the past decades, and the traditional automation. And I think people are very familiar with the chatbot, and that is the traditional automation, okay, the very intuitive way of thinking about the example. So several vendors, and they provide the automations in the chatbot to schedule the meetings or do the engagement or some other tasks. So those automations are solving the right problem, okay. So but now we have the agentic AI. So I want to point out two very fundamental difference. And the first one is about how the agentic AI can do the reasoning and planning in the multi-steps. And that is very fundamental difference from the traditional automation. So for instance, in the chatbot people deployed today, and you definitely experienced this example. If the chatbot was pre-programmed to take the full name as the information, so and the other side, if the candidates didn't give the full name or give the format of the full name in a very different way, then the program can understand. Okay, and then the chatbot was trained. Then the chatbot will keep asking, "Hey, give me the full name. Give me the full name." Why? Because it's a very rule-based and it's a predefined rule. But then the agentic AI is that experience still probably solving the same problem, probably in the same user scenario. But then the agentic AI will be able to be more contextual and dynamic. Okay, so you can give a much more flexible format of name information. Or if you don't give the name, but the chatbot won't be that stubborn. Okay, won't keep asking you, "Hey, give me the full name." No, it will handle the conversation very smoothly, right? And I think the fundamental technology behind is very different. The traditional automation, the technology behind is more about the previous generation of NLP, and a lot of them built the huge knowledge graph or the library, the index behind to handle those rule-based programming, okay, the rule-based intelligence. But now the agentic AI behind the scene is the foundation models and the generative AI technologies. It's much more powerful. So this is the first very big differentiation. The fundamental difference is about the decision making, the reasoning and planning in multi-steps. Okay, we call multi-steps reasoning and planning. And the second huge difference is about how flexible and how intelligent today's agentic AI can leverage and use the tools to solve the problem. Okay, and the tools and a lot of the tools you don't need to pre-program. You don't need to set the rule for uh the system, the agentic AI to leverage it, where as long as you define what is the tool, okay, and define just like teaching a human what it is, and then the agentic AI will be able to identify the scenario to call that those tools, to use those tools, and that is missing in the traditional automation. So the two big differences and definitely will bring the very different recruiters experience and candidate experience in today's agentic AI experience. Okay, so that's my understanding of the difference. So I want to hear from Alicia, and you are in the field and bring the practical insights.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for starting off with that, because I think similar to what was automation, what is AI, these conversations have a way of kind of following the rumor mill, and people believe what they hear, what they see. And it's always nice when we start off a conversation like this, setting the stage for what it is that we're talking about. And there are so many different things that we can solve for with the use of agentic that weren't really possible previously, just with the role-based automations that you were speaking about. So it's very interesting to see how we can identify patterns in our recruitment process and then think about what these different agents, when working together or taking these multiple step processes and acting on them, can do to give time back to the recruiters. I think it's really interesting, and it will be really amazing to see over the next couple of years or months and years what all we're going to be able to do, especially now that we have identified the difference between, I don't want to say just automation, because automation is really important, but taking that to the next level.
Awesome. And so with all this innovation and, rapid changes, Alicia, how would you say that leading organizations are balancing that AI with the human expertise?
Well, first, I want to shout out that a lot of organizations think that it's going to be an immediate fix to a problem. And I think for anybody on the call, this is something that you could bring back to your finance team, is it's probably not going to be an immediate fix. It's going to be something that we have to invest in, work with, establish governance around, and then we'll see those value creation metrics come to life down the road. But there is a lot of talk. I think that's where we're at right now, is there's just a lot of conversations of, if you're not using AI, if you're not using agentic, what is it that we can do? So I think the first and most logical thing to do is to take a step back and look at what are the different use cases and how they can be applied within your particular organization or your recruitment process, because the answer is going to be slightly different for everyone. But starting with the problem to solve is important, as opposed to say, we need to be leveraging agentic AI. We need to have, it needs to be purpose built, because otherwise we're never going to be able to prove that ROI down the road. So that's really, really important. Starting out, I always like to say, with a North Star or a problem or challenge statement, and then determining how we can apply some of these amazing technologies to that problem statement.
Can I chime in quickly, Shelby?
Yeah.
I completely agree with what Alicia just said. And in the past 3 years, actually 2 years, okay. And I read one report. It's saying the big issue of this new generation of AI technology and its deployment in the past 2 years, because of the CFOs and COOs and CEOs push, and actually also the board members push, the ROI was not proven. And that is the biggest issue today, right? And even though all the investments still poured in into this industry. Okay, that's a good thing. Okay, but all the technology providers now need to focus on how to prove the ROI if you deploy the AI system in the business processes, right? And recruiting is one of the core business processes. And we also need to, we face the same issue, and we need to also prove what's the ROI. And that's exactly what Anisha just said, the success metrics and how to prove it, right? And when we face the last mile delivery issue of AI, and we are more and more convinced about the human centric and the human elements in the whole process. So what certain things AI can do and what certain things AI cannot do, and what human is really, really good at, especially we are in a people business, and evaluating the tasks of delivery the goods from Amazon.com. Okay, and it's very comparing to how to deliver the talent into the business, into the organization. I think we are facing a much more complicated problem here. Okay, so the last mile issues are very significant, and I think in those challenges, we need to look at and prioritize the human elements and the human's intelligence much more seriously, instead of being very aggressive at eliminating the humans in the whole process. So that's my observation.
It allows humans to be more human, I think, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. Alicia, you touched on, oh, sorry, Stephen, before you, oh, you're
No, I just agree. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Alicia, you mentioned some strategies for implementing AI. You know, you talked about the North Star and identifying the problem. What are some other practical strategies for implementing the AI while maintaining the human-centric focus?
Yeah, I think another key takeaway is that any type of AI, whether automation, agentic, what have you, is a solution that continues to need to be cared for. So it's not set it and forget it. It's not as though we're going to make an investment in a product, so to speak, turn it on, apply it, make it work, and then it's just going to do the thing that we asked it to do. There does need to be intervention at certain points in time to both correct any bugs or adjust the learning from the model that it might have been built on, make it be more fit for purpose, or perhaps even optimize the process that it came in to help make more efficient. It's just like anything else. You talk about working really hard at anything and then stopping work and then you become complacent or go backwards. It's the same thing with this. And so as we think about how does the role of a person change in a process, we're still going to need people. We may need less people, or their roles might be different, but the people are still there. So as an example, we're still going to want to have advocates, I'll call them brand advocates, on behalf of our organizations that we're recruiting for, that can tell the stories, that can align why a job opportunity might align with somebody else's personal career goals and things like that. But what can we do to help them get into our talent community quicker? What can we do to help them get an edge on their application? Things like that. There's ways that we can evaluate what our process looks like, and that will continue to happen. That will need to happen for this year. That'll need to happen in year 1 and year 2, and also setting goals so that way we can make sure that we're achieving those goals.
Awesome. Stephen, did you want to add to that?
For the AI's deployment and the implementation, deployment, and practice, we need to look at what is the fundamental goal we want to achieve first. It's not about, hey, we have AI deployed, and so that we will make the C-suite happy. And even though it's very often this is the case, okay. And from the vendor side, I can share this brutal fact. A lot of today's AI deployment, the request was not from HR department, was from the CIO, COO, CEO, CFO. Okay, this is very interesting and also very wrong, in my opinion. It should be from the HR department. And so that the HR's head will decide, hey, what it truly needs in what process and what will be the best goal to achieve. And then backward to see what AI technology I need to adopt, I need to use, and how the AI human interactions and how the AI and human the collaborations should be put together. So that's my suggestion for the HR leaders and the TA leaders here.
When I
Awesome.
want to add to that too, Stephen, because one of the things that we do within my team, and I know there's a couple of people on here, is we do an exercise every year. And to be fair, we do it at the end of the year, but really you could do it now. The stop, start, continue, where you think about how we're going about our work and where we might want to make changes and use it from that point of view. Because if you're coming at it from a high level, and to your point, Stephen, asking the people that are actually responsible for doing the work as opposed to somebody who might have an opinion on the matter, it makes a huge difference. But if it starts with I want to stop doing this, and I'm trying to think of an example. I want to stop using handwritten notes for my interviews. Okay, then the conversation shifts and says, okay, well, what are our other options? We know we can type. We know that we can have tools that help to transcribe and record our interviews, things along those lines. But when you start out with something in mind that way, then you can come to something that's going to be super impactful. So the other piece is just having those conversations amongst the team. So understanding really what are those challenges that we're facing at the front lines, because that's really where we're going to make impact, and how we're going to get adoption. Because the other part of this is we are asking the people that might have held recruiter, sourcer, or coordinator roles or anything else in talent acquisition to do their jobs differently, to approach their work in a different way. And that's really hard, especially for people that have been doing this for a long time. So if we end up looking at things that are going to make their lives easier, make our lives easier, we're likely going to have better buy-in when we're looking to actually apply and enforce those changes.
Agree. And Alicia, and in your practice, you probably also realize the change management is more difficult than the technology's implementation itself. Okay, and change management, it also the difficulty was rooted from two places, in my understanding, right? And first, human nature. Human nature is not in favor of change. Okay, that's just us. We are humans. Okay, and second, root cause is about the change historically didn't get into the right expectation or the right experience or right outcome from the recruiters. So, and people were all afraid of a change that won't make their life easier. Right. So I borrow the words make their life from Alicia and make their life easier. So and then it raised a great question for all the technology providers that and also a great question to the TA leaders like Alicia. How can we provide the more natural, more intuitive solution for the recruiters to adopt, right? And we should strongly believe that if something is so simple, intuitive, and works, people are smart enough to figure it out, and then they will adopt, right?
They will, and as long as they have that guidance and that sort of helping hand along the way, especially at the beginning of that change management process, for sure.
And
Yep.
so speaking of change management, Alicia, I'd love to hear more of your insights on how the recruiter's role is changing and evolving with all this new technology.
Yeah, I mean, if I think about when I started recruiting, we were responsible for all of the things. So making the phone calls, scheduling the interviews, making sure that there was a room for somebody to show up, and at times even taking candidates, escorting them from when they arrive to sitting them down with their hiring managers, tabulating all the notes, preparing the offers, all, the entire process. And so today, a lot of those front and back ends of the process are really have the opportunity to be taken off of the recruiter's plate or sourcer or coordinator. And so that can be challenging. And so they say, well, we're taking away these, 10 to 20 other tasks that used to be on my plate to do. What am I going to do now? Spend more time with our candidates, spend more time being that brand advocate, spend more time building those relationships with these individuals. And maybe we can become our own, we can fill up our own pipelines, is what I'm getting at. So that way, maybe not everybody's ready to make a move right now, but we can have that longer engagement that might lead to something down the road. And it gives us more time to do that. So when I've spoken to so many recruiters over the years, many people love the fact that they get to help people as part of their role. So it actually gives us more time to help people, gives us more time to help get them in the right places. And I see a comment in the chat here also connecting with the business. And I think that's another great takeaway. So I was thinking of it in somewhat of a different way than what Sita had suggested, but learning about the business challenges that exist, learning about where the company is headed. So that way, again, we can take that information and properly convey it to our candidates to get them excited about these opportunities.
I I also think about we need to adjust this what is not changed first before we talk about the change of the role.
Mm-hmm.
If we think what is recruiter as a definition, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the very, very beginning, if we push back to like 100, no, probably need to be 1,000 years ago. So how the business at that time recruited people, recruited talent. So probably a lot of a small family business, okay, very small, okay, and how they hired their first worker. Probably they just needed 2 at the most or 3, okay? And because at that time, there was no globalization and there was no corporate either, okay? Just very simple, right? You open a store and you want to hire 1 person, 2 people. And it's directly from the hiring manager, business owner, and the workers. There was no recruiter. But then why this happened? I think because of the so many generations of technologies to make the business scalability huge scale, okay? And the scalability of the business and also the complexity of the business created the role of HR, the role of talent acquisition to offload the domain expertise from the business owner. That is my understanding of how recruiter was, this role was created. Then that role's definition was not changed, is not changed, will not be changed as long as we need to have a specific group of people to handle the very complex business process called talent acquisition. So spend more time with the business, spend more time with the candidates to be the talent strategist. I don't like advisor because advisor, that's too arrogant, okay, as a title, but strategist, and that's more appropriate, okay? So that's the role was defined before And now I think that role should be reinstated, to restart, to make sure that recruiters are performing that role very successfully. And ironically, technologies made recruiters very addictive to the technology itself. We spend more time on learning and adopting the tools than the time we spent on the business and the candidates. I think that's wrong. And now the AI makes the tools much simpler, okay, and make the whole a lot of a very complex process be simple. Now we have we need to get back to what's basic, okay, and the role of the recruiter is not changed, and the responsibility and supposed should be the strategist, and that should be re-emphasized again.
You brought up a really good point, Stephen, that I wanted to underline too, about the somewhat addictive nature of technology, especially the tools that we're used to using every day. A lot of times people feel busy or want to feel busy because they're doing something. And clicking and doing the different things that these different tools that we have, which are fantastic, by the way. I love, if we don't have recruitment tech, what are we doing, right? So it's not a knock on this by any means, but there is a way of making somebody feel like they're a lot more productive than they actually are. I would challenge any recruiters that are on the call right now, today, by the end of this month, go look at your own recruiter productivity metrics. You can access it in your tools. I know hireEZ has a great dashboard, so you can see all of the metrics. We might be spending a lot of time doing things that are not yielding a lot of results. And so that's the other benefit to building AI into our processes, is we can make things happen faster. It might make you feel like you're doing less work, but again, there's that time, to your point, Stephen, to go back to the business, to go back to the candidates, that sort of thing. But it's very easy to not feel busy because of the behavior change, because the technology kind of made it so that way we feel that way. So I just wanted to throw that in because I thought that was a really interesting point that we often forget.
Yeah, agree. And the evolving role of a recruiter, and this is a very real, okay, this is true, it's a happening. And this is also a huge challenge for recruiters, for everybody in this webinar. Yeah. So what has been in my mind for a while is that in this new role, what recruiters should do, and we as a recruiter, we have the historical habit, the great habit of doing a lot of things. So for example, we do the search, we do the sourcing, and we do the profile review, and we do the message outreach, and we do here and there, we do coordinating, we do scheduling, and even in the interview, the note taking. And most of the things will be partially or fully done by AI. Then what should we do in order to get the more productivities and also more results? So that's something we probably need to start to look into. What is the not clearly defined as the element, the mechanical element, or the repetitive elements, and then we need to define and very clearly about what are those things. Then we start to focus on it. So for instance, in the interview, before including hiring managers and recruiters, typically we will have the note taking. But if now the generative AI is very good at that, okay? So and it takes over this note taking. Then the whole interview process, you probably also agree with me that there are much more elements not be able to identify or even formalized as something you are able to take. Okay, so those information, and we need to think about, okay, so how can we help the hiring managers, and how can we help the candidates identify the the chemistry itself is a very undefined term, okay? And there are so many unscientific things and unmeasurable things into it. But now it's our responsibility to identify what is it. Why sometimes the perfect resume, the perfect match found a surface, but then it comes to the interview between A and B, and when they start to talk, then A said, no, B is not matched. What is missing? You cannot simply say, oh, they don't have the chemistry. That's not scientific, okay? So we got to identify.
Yeah. And then figuring, honing in to your point on what is it there, and then how can, and is that something that can be solved for? And yeah, that's a great point.
Yes. And that is not AI can do, okay? So AI is far from being that intelligent. And that's not something that you should expect AI to take over within 10 years. Trust me, okay? So, and there must be something behind the scene, and there must be something in that so-called chemistry. Hey, A and B, cultural fit. What is a cultural fit? Right? And every time I heard about cultural fit, I always ask, hey, identify, define for me. I don't accept, oh, I like it. I don't like it. Oh, I like them. I don't like them. It doesn't matter to me. And you got to identify, define what it is. Because business is business. And you got to have this crystal clear definition so that we are able to make the right decision. Right. So that's great value from the new recruiter role.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a lot more about, I think it's a lot more about thinking and communicating than it is about doing a task. Which again, any of us that grew up as recruiters grew up doing a lot of tasks that now could be done in other ways. So then we have time to get back to your point, what we were here to do in the first place.
Alicia, sorry, Shabby.
No, go ahead.
I know you are controlling the time and the
Go ahead.
yeah. Alicia, you have probably over 1,000 recruiters globally. And when we talked about the evolving role of recruiters, and that must be your top priority in your daily work, right, every day. So what specific things you started to push for your recruiters to make change and to start to evolve themselves, improve and upgrade themselves?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that we did as an organization in Wilson a couple of years ago was really honed in on skills, so that way we could understand, and I say skills, I know that that's another topic for maybe our next webinar, Stephen, we can talk about skills. But we looked at the recruiter to understand where their skills were. And then to your point, knowing that we're really looking at the communication, we're looking at the negotiation, we're looking at really the sales aspect. So what can we do to help upskill or expose those maybe that haven't had that much experience with those areas, to train them and to help them become more comfortable, and provide trainings in those ways. So that, and then I would also say just really diversifying how we go about our work. So maybe it's trying a new tool or technology, something that is approved that has some sort of AI built into it. Maybe it's taking a step back from how they go about their work and identifying one change that we can make. But I think as you mentioned before, change is hard. As human nature, change is difficult. But if we can find small ways within a recruiter's desk to make slight changes, then it becomes less scary. It's not as though we have to make a huge change all at once, right? So just constantly looking for those areas, highlighting those skills, and then also just looking to purposefully make a change, intentionally making a change on how they go about their work, because then that's going to help when we're perhaps mandating a change, that's going to help that to have a leg to stand on as we go through those change processes.
That
Gotcha.
actually leads me to my next question. What would you say are the key organizational capabilities that we need for that successful transformation?
Lots of different resources, I think, is the first piece of advice that I would give, meaning what we're talking about fundamentally is a learning exercise, right? We're learning or teaching how to do something in a different way. Everybody learns very differently. Some people respond to, a step-by-step guide. Some people like to try it themselves. Some people like to do the shadow situation. So providing training and resources that meet everybody where they are, I think is really helpful. And that's also a very, very challenging task to take on, especially if your team has tens or hundreds of recruiters. But there's also likely people within the organization who want to help with that. And so I think leaning into those individuals, it also gives them a chance to step up and help out with that. So having a great change strategy, and then also communication, and then opportunities for people to touch base. Doesn't even need to be like a trainer, so to speak, is teaching somebody, but maybe there's peer-led trainings, maybe there's one-to-ones or role play exercises that can be done. So that way we can encourage each other, but put it on the team to work amongst themselves as opposed to just taking it from a learning standpoint too. I think those are really important.
Yeah.
And I have been working with many RPO firms and also many corporate in-house recruiting teams. Generally speaking, but don't feel offended. I think RPO teams usually are faster and more proactive at adopting the new technologies. So my suggestion is that why not the corporate in-house recruiting teams, and they can turn to finding the help and the training from the RPO teams, right? And that is also a very good approach to get the resources.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about it in the same way as a large sales organization, as an example. Individuals that go through training programs or development courses put on by large organizations, they have large populations of sales individuals. Like in an RPO, to your point, there's large populations of recruiters. So it makes sense. Recruiters and people are who deliver those services. So there's a lot of information to be gained from going that route. And I know many will offer those training services as an additional offering, as opposed to just having recruiters themselves. So that's a great option.
Awesome. I just have one more question. We talked about the importance of measuring success. How would you say that's happening right now?
I think there's a lot of different ways to measure success, and ultimately it comes down to what drives the business. Because I could send you a list of 50 best-in-class SLA or KPI metrics. That doesn't mean that those 50 are best for any organization. If there's, again, I go back to the idea of a problem statement or a challenge statement. Your results should make progress against that challenge statement. So making sure that if there's a goal that's being set or something that we're measuring and seeing how it trends, that it helps to get to that goal. So for example, if an organization is growing like crazy, they have incredible growth numbers, they need to add on X number of headcount in the next couple of quarters, maybe time is really important, because maybe those roles need to be filled so that way a new product can launch or what have you. Look at time as a metric. For somebody else, maybe it's thinking about a skills journey where time might not be more important. Then maybe we should be looking at quality of hire. I think just aligning what we're measuring against that initial problem statement is really important, because then after X amount of time goes by, we'll be able to say, look at how much progress we've made and how much we've put a dent in solving that problem.
The future of talent acquisition isn't coming. It's already here. See for yourself at hireEZ.com.